still, John, we have a couple of minutes left if you wanted to place another question or another.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I will in the few minutes that we've got left. So can I just ask, just going back to Intrepidus law where we began, if you look at the legislation as currently drafted that we are about to be asked to pass, what are the risks that you see, particularly for disabled women and women playing in formal carer roles? And if you can give a brief answer, I'll open it to anybody else that wants to answer, and that'll be my last question.
I'm happy to answer this together with Jasmine. I'll start first. The risks that I see are because of the uncertainty around this needs assessment tool. What I predict will happen is, and we know that this is being driven by massive cost savings to the scheme, which naturally means that what is going to happen is people's supports will be cut, right? People's supports will be cut. And practically what that means for women who have a connection to disability in this country is that they will be picking up all that unpaid support work principally. I predict there'll be a lot of mothers having to quit their employment to pick up the supports that were maybe previously funded and now is not being funded, which creates further vulnerability if you're in a domestic violence situation because you lose your financial independence, you're not earning superannuation. For women with disability, there's such a, we've gone through a Disability Royal Commission where we've had story upon story upon story of the abuse, the sexual abuse and physical abuse that women with disability have endured in Australia through group settings and institutionalisation. And the real concern, and it's a very real concern, is that a lot of women from those trauma backgrounds, it's not just women, it's men as well, but in particular women, will be funded at a 1-to-3 support ratio and will be forced into those group situations again, where they'll be at risk of that abuse repeating itself. It defies just all sense of comprehension for me how we could go through a Disability Royal Commission and hear all of those stories and set those people up for that same prospect again. It's quite devastating and the risks are real. And I'm very concerned about women. I would say that most of my clients are women. It's always the mum who has taken on the administrative load of supporting the disabled loved one in the family typically, and they're the ones that go in and fight with the government about funding and getting things right and managing plans, and maybe even they're at risk of those nasty debts being raised against them because they've thought they're doing the right thing, and government says no, you've spent that wrong, and there's so many points of exposure for women and so many risks for women in general. But in particular, another thing that hasn't really been spoken about as a risk for women is the lack of foundational supports that we have any information on or don't seem to have been set up, and that is going to really impact women who have children who are on the scheme at the moment. And there's a sense that certain children will become a different class of participant even, and might even, be asked to leave the scheme, and there's nothing there available. And that then puts, again, the mothers and the women that are supporting these children in very risky situations of weighing up, well, do I keep my job or do I reduce my work hours or do I have to quit my job so I can provide the support that my child needs now that they've been kicked off the scheme and I don't seem to know how to review that decision, or this nasty needs assessment is not very helpful at all. What do I do about it? It just seems like a recipe for disaster. Jasmine, I'll let you have a chat about that.
Yeah, so thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to provide evidence. Look, I think on the overall, where there is a shortfall in people's plans, and we see this quite commonly as this scheme stands currently, is that it's usually up to the family to make up that shortfall, whether it be mothers, grandmothers, aunties, sisters and daughters. It's them who step in to make up that difference between what is provided in the plan and what the participant actually needs. And so in addition to providing the additional support or care or the administrative burden of that, the physical burden of that, there is then the administrative burden of being potentially the plan nominee, going through and supporting the participants to engage in the AAT process, or going through that process, gathering the documentation, all of those kinds of things. And if you take into consideration, the number of people with disability, there's potentially an equal number of women supporting those people with disability, and that is a lot of people who are at reduced employment or who are giving up their careers or taking smaller careers to be able to support their loved ones in the long term. And that has long-term effects in terms of their superannuation, their financial stability and things like that. And in a society at the moment where there is a significant amount of violence against women, and financial independence is so important, and the reduced amount of superannuation and stuff that is building up because they're not working is concerning, and that puts them at significant risk.
Thank you very much for your evidence today, for all of you, for participating in our inquiry and our processes, including those who are doing so for the second time. At this point, we do need to conclude today's hearing, though, and I thank witnesses across the day who've appeared, and also Hansard Broadcasting and our Secretariat for their assistance today. The committee will report to the Senate on Monday the 5th of August and request that answers to questions taken on notice are provided to the committee Secretariat by close of business on Wednesday the 31st of July 2024. Thank you again. The committee now stands adjourned.